Hey everybody, Michael Pilhofer here, Technique Hub on MSP Fitness TV. Today we're going to be talking about proper footwear, and we're going to qualify that. We're going to think in terms of general health and fitness client, strength training, and generally thinking in terms of on a platform from a standpoint of like the shoe choices we're going to wear and the conversation that we're going to have. So let's talk about the three most common shoes that you're going to see in a general and kind of weightlifting environment. We're going to talk about the lovely running shoe. Then we have kind of this minimalist, go back to old school Chuck Taylor or kind of a more modern version, basically a very minimal sole and usually not much of a heel arch. And then the mighty weightlifting shoe. So why would it even matter? Why would we have 50 different pairs of shoes? And you have to think of it in terms of why would you wear a piece of cumbersome clothing that would interfere with your ability to do work or do something? Same thing with shoe. Proper footwear can really help facilitate better movement, better positions, and ultimately more weight on a barbell, which means more strength and just a whole number of good positives to that. So when we're talking footwear, we're talking about being grounded to the floor. When we're interfacing with different choices, those can impact our ability or our stability in that environment, which radiates from the floor up to whatever lift we're going to be talking about. So this takes us to our first and probably most common shoe choice that you're going to see in a gym, which is the running shoe. Let me reiterate that. It's a running shoe. A running shoe is designed for running. Using it in a weightlifting environment, not only is it going to reduce the life expectancy of the shoe for the purpose of running, but it's also basically going to have you essentially like lifting on a waterbed because of the mushiness of the shoe. The validity of this shoe in a strength training environment, I'd say very little. This isn't going to help you. So let's talk about some shoes that are. So when we look at like kind of a mixed modal training environment, where let's say you're going to have running with maybe some body weight movements that might involve some sort of a lift. If you have generally good ankle mobility, a shoe like this, a relatively minimalist shoe, can actually be a really good choice for all of those things because you're not going to be limited in any one movement, where a weightlifting shoe, and we'll get to that, and the rigidity of it might make some of the movements very cumbersome or nearly impossible, like say the running piece of it. So overall, again, big picture, good mobility, these shoes, the minimalist shoe, is a great kind of do-it-all. So let's move on to our last kind of most famous shoe on the roll here, which is the weightlifting shoe. This is primarily for weightlifters, just like the running shoe is for runners. If you are a weightlifter, this is your shoe every day, all day. Allow me to go on record to say that I think for the general health and fitness client, a weightlifting shoe can be a little bit over-relied upon. With that said, let's take a look at the weightlifting shoe. First and foremost, it's as if you're lifting in cement. It's incredibly rigid overall, and then probably the most distinguishing characteristic is this raised heel. I think the raised heel piece, let's kind of go down that rabbit hole and talk about why that matters. Certain lifts, and let's take squatting as kind of the primary example. If your ankle mobility is limited, you're going to see in some examples coming up here how that's going to inhibit your ability to be more in an optimal position, which will reduce the amount of weight that you potentially put on the bar and reduce your ability to get stronger. In all my years of coaching, analyzing and assessing hundreds of clients, I have seen so many jacked up ankles, those that actually have good ankle mobility that I would characterize as ideal. I could probably count on my hands and toes, and probably more in particular on my hands. Big picture, I would rather have symmetrical ankle mobility, whether it's limited or excessive, versus asymmetrical. So let's take a look at this video. I'm going to simulate how poor ankle mobility is going to affect ultimately my squatting position. You'll see that if I have ankles limited, it's going to prevent me from translating those knees forward, which pushes my hips backwards, and what happens to my torso? To basically balance myself, I've got to end up kind of leaning over, which in the end is just not nearly as efficient. In either squatting front or back, the more upright your torso can be, the more efficient the loading can be. And in the end, what we're looking for is that bar to sit straight over your base, or basically your footprint. So now as we look at me kind of loading with just a simple barbell, you're going to see that because of that poor ankle mobility, that bar position, see how far, especially in a front squat, it pushes that bar significantly forward of my base. Again, incredibly inefficient. So let's pause for a second and think about those two scenarios. Here's a situation where proper footwear, where a weightlifting shoe that's going to put them in a better environment will make that person be far more successful and safer if we're going to do any sort of squatting in my gym. Now I have to admit, I'm graced with relatively good ankle mobility, so let's take a look at this quick video. Here you're going to see me without weightlifting shoes performing the same movement. Contrasting to that first video, you're going to see my ability to translate those shins to be far more forward, which puts my hips almost straight over my heels, which brings my torso way more upright. So then go from that environment into weightlifting shoes, and I can practically stand my back vertically upright. Put a load on top of that, and you can put the load straight over my midfoot, which just from an efficiency standpoint is spot on. So with that, you might ask the question like, why would I ever be in weightlifting shoes? Well, my sport is weightlifting. So my sport is weightlifting. I'm going to be in weightlifting shoes because that is going to be more stable. It's going to allow me to move more weight and in the end, perform better at my sport. Now for a general weight, kind of general health and fitness client, that is a great question. And one might kind of just put a question mark on it. I would still probably say that from a stability standpoint, if the goal for that client is I want more weight on the bar, then I'm probably going to put them in weightlifting shoes. Why? Because they're going to be more stable, more confident, more weight on the bar, stronger athlete. Kind of wrapping this up now, we can kind of look back and see that it's not just a straight path of like shoe yes, shoe no. I think we can agree that running shoes, let's kind of take those off the table. But big picture, a weightlifting shoe provides a ton of value. A flat shoe provides a ton of value. We get into the ankle mobility piece. In the end, that's where a qualified coach can really help kind of prescribe the right information for you as the individual. Hope you enjoyed this video on our Technique Hub. Check us out at mspfitness.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Have a great day.